All right, let's go ahead and get started. We've got an exciting class today, our much anticipated on-camera workshop. We're very fortunate to have a guest lecturer with us, Alberto Bonilla, alum of Rutgers, as a matter of fact. MFA from Rutgers School of the Arts, many acting credits, a lot of experience teaching on-camera stuff, a lot of experience teaching other acting stuff, both in academic and studio environments in New York City. We're going to go through this workshop, go over some basics of on-camera stuff, audio-visual basics, lighting basics, angles, some things that will help you with the exercises that we're actually going to do, which are, yeah, I can manage it quick, that's all right. Which are going to be the video conferencing, the on-camera interviews, the press conferences. Should you find yourself in your company doing a video conference and you want to represent yourself as positively as you can, similarly if you're making an important statement in a press conference or doing an important thing for an interview in a professional setting. So with that, I'm going to go over some of those basics. Alberto's going to chime in a little bit. That'll take maybe about an hour, and then we'll start the exercises after that. We've got some breakout rooms, and we've got a system we've devised. Are you ready? Fantastic. All right, so we'll go over some basics. In general, we'll talk about specifically how to do good video conference, how to do good on-camera interview, how to do good press conference. Then we've got our various exercises. So let's start with some AV basics sound. Now, there's a couple things I want to go over in terms of using a microphone effectively. The first is just starting with the microphone, just starting a speech with the microphone. Have any of you ever noticed sometimes there's this really abrupt intro sound, maybe a tuft of sound, something that scares your audience? All right, there's a couple things I recommend to avoid that intro. If you're making a speech with a big microphone, or if you're doing one of these things, video conference, camera, press conference type thing. One, I call the H technique. The other I call the increasing volume pull technique. The H technique is starting with a word that starts with H. So the letter H, it's a breathy sound. So if you say how, high, Harold, it's different than the hard start, like Priya. That has a P sound. And if you get that wrong, it can be an abrupt thing on, the microphone. So I recommend imagining that there's an H in the start of the word that you are starting with. So if you're going to say, you can do it either way. You can start with a word that starts with H, or you can imagine the H in front of it. So if I'm going to say, how is everyone doing today? I can have that space where I'm using the breath to say H to make sure the volume is right. The other thing I can do is I can adjust the volume of the microphone as I'm getting started. I can start with the microphone a little bit further away from me, and I can pull it towards me as I make sure the sound is adjusted properly. So I can start with the slightly breathy H, lean into it, and pull the microphone towards me as I'm adjusting for volume. Does that make sense? Fantastic. Adjust for body mic. Now sometimes you won't have an actual handheld mic, you'll have a body mic, and you'll just need to listen very carefully and adjust your sound for that. It's a little bit more of a challenge, but you can't actually pull the body mic further away from you. You just have to be very conscious of it. Visible face mouth. So anytime you're doing an on-camera interview, a video conference, you want your audience to see your face and see your mouth. They've done studies to show that if you can see someone's face as they're talking to you, you will see them as more trustworthy. If you can't see someone's face when they're talking to you, you don't connect with them as effectively. And that probably shouldn't be a surprise to you. So you want to make sure that your whole mouth, your whole face is visible on camera. Voice. Slow, natural, engaged. All right, this is not the time to try out your ringside presenter voice. You want to just talk naturally. You also want to talk slowly, and you want to be engaged. Now, I won't do anything in this class. I really don't coach people on how to use an effective vocal technique. I will often just say, be more engaged. Be more excited about what you're saying. use some of the eye contact techniques to connect with your audience. Use those hand gesture techniques that we did in class 2 to bring more physical engagement. And what happens is just a naturally more powerful tone of voice. So I'm not going to teach any fancy techniques when we do on-camera stuff in terms of voice. It's just to remind you to use your natural voice, speak slowly, and be excited to be engaged. Starting and stopping. So when you're starting and stopping using any sort of audio-visual equipment, you want to think about these working the microphone techniques to start. You also want to think about a full sentence minimum. You don't want to use a lot of short words, especially if you're on a video conference that's going back and forth. You say, yes, I agree. Sometimes there's a time delay. Sometimes there's a little chop at the beginning of the sound. Full sentence minimum, and be clear about when you're stopping. It's not the time to ramble on and on, because it confuses your audience even more if it's unclear where you're stopping. Any questions about that stuff? So some things to keep in mind working the microphone. Use your natural voice. Start and stop with a clear focus. Second thing I want to address. Yes, Liv.
How would you do a clear stop?
Just like you did. You had a downward inflection in your voice, a clear stop. No one had any doubt that you were stopping then. If you have a softer upward inflection, maybe I'm going to kind of ramble on. If you can do things facially with your eyes that indicate you're thinking, maybe you're going to say something else. That stuff confuses your audience even more when you add the camera to it. Okay. Next thing I want to just address is where you look. So suppose I'm giving you all a lecture here and there's a camera in the room, and there actually is a camera in the room. So do I look at the camera the whole time? Or do I look at you the whole time? It depends. Depends on the situation, depends on the scenario, depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But what I would point out is that what we'll cover in this workshop is times we always want to be aware of the camera. So if I'm doing a workshop where I look at the participants in the room, I don't want to forget that the purpose of this is so this television audience can see. So I always want to maintain an open stance to the camera. I really don't follow these techniques for recording this class because it's just a little something extra we do for class participation, and so you all can have a record if you do presentations. But if this were something that was important to me to spreading the message online, whatever, I would be more conscious of the camera. So we might want to do eye contact with the studio audience, we might want to do eye contact with the television audience. But in either case, we are aware of the camera. If we're making eye contact with the studio audience, we're showing the television audience what it would be like if they were here. So I'm using good, sincere eye contact with the studio audience and giving our television audience that feeling like, wow, if I were in class, I would be engaged with this person. Now, if I want to speak directly to the television audience, that may be an important choice, in which case I would look directly into the camera. And that can be a little bit weird sometimes. I've thought about this a lot when I've been watching the Republican debates. I guess I watch the Democratic debates too, but it just gets a lot more exciting in the Republican debates because there's a lot of people on stage, there's a lot of bickering back and forth, and then sometimes the candidates, instead of looking at the moderator, instead of looking at the person next to them, they will stare directly into the camera and address the American people. And that's a little bit hard to do if you think about it. So I've got people on stage I'm debating with, I've got a moderator asking me questions, I've got people in the audience who are here, and all of a sudden I'm staring into some weird metal thing. How do I be sincere about that? Let me trade up to Alberto and ask him for techniques about how to connect with the camera, this weird metal thing.
One of the things that when you guys will notice if you ever watch political debates as Zach's talking about is that when somebody's looking directly into the camera, they're not looking into the camera as if it's a machine. They're actually trying to relate to it. Either it's like their best friend, a pet, something that brings about a sincerity. If when a really good politician, for example, Reagan was very good at doing this. Everybody, whenever they saw Reagan, they thought it was like grandpa talking. So, just even if he was saying good news or bad news. Clinton was very good at looking into the camera. He lied about an entire affair right into the camera, and the nation didn't believe it. But it's because one of the things that he did was he committed fully to whatever message he had, or that she has, or whoever is looking into the camera. And it's about clarity of intention as well. You'll notice that when you talk to somebody and you're looking them in the eyes, if they know what they're talking about, there's a clarity that happens in their eyes. And there's a commitment, so then you begin to trust them. You need to know that when you're looking into the camera, to have that exact same kind of clarity. So you need to know your message, whatever your message is. Really believe in your message. Whether it's good news or bad news, whether you're doing a Skype interview and you're telling them about last quarter's loss, or that you're pitching yourself for a job. It really does come across. The other thing that is a technique that is used, it's actually a commercial use. It's called triangulation technique. And what that is let's just say I have a chart or I have an object. And here's the camera. And what I do is that if I'm looking into the camera and I'm talking directly to it, what I do is I first look down to the object I'm going to bring into frame. So I look there, I look down, I bring it into frame while I'm looking at it, and then I look again to the camera. You'll notice that every aspirin commercial that you ever watch for Bayer, or anytime they bring an object into frame, what they do is they first, the Coke commercial, they look at it, bring it in here, and then bring it back to you. So it's called triangular technique. It's 1, right? And then it's to 2 to 3. And what that does is it's very jarring visually. If I was to bring something into frame, it's really weird. Even without the frame, you guys are already laughing at it. But if I was to look at this and then look at you, all of a sudden there becomes a relation to it. So if you're ever bringing any kind of object, say for instance you're doing a presentation, you're trying to bring it into the Skype frame or whatever, don't just pull it out of nowhere. Introduce it with your eyes, and for whatever reason, visually, they trust it more. You want to take lead?
Oh, you can.
So, leading leading the camera is actually something that's done. Let's say if you're walking and they're following you with the camera, or if you're moving with the camera. Sometimes you'll notice that sometimes it's on talk shows, somebody will be talking and then they'll move across, or if you're doing a presentation and they're videotaping it. What you need to do is you need to actually not move so quickly. You need to almost signal your intent. Do you see how I almost moved like that? You knew I was going to move this way. It is actually to help the camera move with you. Because if I was to suddenly move back or move to the side, I become out of focus. And they've done studies actually where whenever something goes slightly out of focus, with a millisecond that it's happening, people tend to lose trust in whatever the message is. They just lose trust. Because think about your wife. If you can't see something very clearly, immediately your primal instinct is not to trust it.
Yeah, let's just think about that for a minute. So this is technical stuff, and Alberto's a professional in camera stuff, and he has a lot of experience making this stuff work. But if you're doing a Skype call and you go out of focus, we've got this study Alberto mentioned, millisecond where they're going to lose trust. Are they going to think that, gosh, this person must be great at accounting, they just don't understand how to use Skype? Or are they going to think, oh, gosh, this person is just not on top of their game professionally? It's kind of a stilted question the way I ask. Of course, the answer I'm looking for is that if you can't handle your Skype call, then people are going to question your professional ability, at least somewhat. And you want to put your best foot forward, even though this is a medium you may not be used to. All right, so let's talk about lighting. Now this is another interesting one. We could talk forever about the nuances and technical stuff of the lighting, but Alberto and I discussed simplifying it down to a couple of basics. Basics that you all could do as business professionals in terms of how you're going to structure this 3-point lighting for, say, a Skype call. And I'm going to, our Skype video conference, I'm going to let Alberto explain the 3-point stuff.
Every interview you see on 2020 or Nightline or even anything that you're going to see on the news uses the same basic lighting, and it's called 3-point lighting. And it's very simple. It just means there are 3 points of light. There is a backlight that either is called a crown light that can be either hitting the subject from the back of the head. So sometimes watching an interview, you'll notice like their hair is a little bit glowing. right? Or it'll hit the background just to define the background of what's behind it. You've got what's called a key light and a fill light. The key light is normally the stronger light. The fill light is to fill in shadows from the one light. Next slide. So this is somebody sitting in a room with no lighting. Now obviously if they were to have a conference call or be interviewed or whatever, your immediate impressions of this are negative. Or it seems unprofessional, or it just seems low. So if we go to the key light, you'll notice that now the subject is really clear, it's more defined, but we have this harsh shadow here, which is very dramatic. I don't know if you want to do your quarterly reports like that, that might not be a good idea. And then the background is kind of blown out, we're not quite sure. He's almost floating in space or something. So then when we get the fill light, what it also does is that it also begins to take a little bit of shape here. Now you could even it with both of them. In this picture we have this one a little bit less, but you'll notice that now they become a three-dimensional object. I tell people, and when I coach politicians or when I coach actors, that if you cross the camera with your face, they have done studies again, that if people only see one side of your face in an entire conversation, they think of you as one-dimensional. But if they see both sides, they think of you as a three-dimensional person, as if you have depth, right? So now he looks like he has a little more depth, however the background isn't quite filled out. So then we get finally the backlight, the key light, and the fill light. Now you'll notice this looks really professional. This looks like it's done. If you were interviewing this person, it would be very interesting. That's why you always see on 2020 or Nightline, whatever, you'll see maybe a lamp in the background that's lit. That's not just for atmosphere. It's actually to define the space in the interview. This is very easy to accomplish.
Just 3 lights, so 3 lamps sitting on your desk can give you this for 2020 look, right?
And you could also even, for instance, let's just say you have a window and you have 2 lights. If you're doing a day conference, what you can do is you make this your main light, get a little lamp over here with a daylight light bulb, because you don't want to mix it or else you're going to get blue and yellow. Make sure it's a daylight. You put it here, and a real easy thing to do, guys, and I do this when I coach people who are in London or Los Angeles, you just need to put something white over it. You can take a bed sheet. Don't put it on it because you'll start a fire, but put it in the front. Or even just, if some lamps have a really nice lampshade, and it diffuses the light, and then get one more light in the background or put a lamp. And now you can do it with 2 lights. Light here, light in the background, and then all of a sudden you're going to look much more presentable, and that's just on a Skype call.
My question was actually in regards to the comment that you made about the side of your face and how it comes off as being one-dimensional.
Yes.
So let's say you're like I've been in, at work, and there's been like conferences with multiple people, right? So it's like a team, and we're presenting a teleconference to another team. So there's like 3 or 4 of us on camera.
Mm-hmm.
What is your suggestion to not wondering, does it make sense to look at the other team members, or do you move forward, or?
I would suggest yes, because one of the things that happens is when you're engaged with, if Zach is up here with me, let's say we're doing a conference call, and the camera's here, and I stay like this the entire time, and he's only seeing that side of the face the entire time, and just a Skype conference call, it's not going to be, there's no reason why I can't come over here, even if it's just to get my coffee, even if it's just to move my thing over, just by them visually seeing both sides. Does that make sense? So of course I would give my attention to Zach when he's talking, and then when I would talk forward, he would give attention to me. That would actually cause, that's actually triangular technique.
And then I would back up and see what he has to do, right?
Don't want to get up there. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. So I understood correctly. You're saying, yes, look at the person who you're speaking, but make a test to like look the other way. So
You can. And it's not like you're consciously making an attempt to look the other way, because then they're going to think you're weird. You can put your water over there. Simply go to grab your water. It's a visual thing that we do. You would feel really odd if if I spoke to you like this the entire time. Never looking at this side. Do you understand? You just do. You would be like, what's wrong with that? In the same way.
You just figure it out, and Alberto and I were joking about that, but let me actually show you that technique. It's a technique actors do a lot of the time. I forget what it's called. Maybe Alberto will remind it. So if we're doing a scene and I step back, look what Alberto would do if he weren't a really smart actor. He would turn and look at me, and we would do the whole scene like this. My face would be in the camera the whole time. The casting directors would remember me because they would just see out the back of Alberto's head. You think actors are really nice people? They're not. They do this all the time. But what Alberto would do, because he's smart, is he'll position himself like this. He'll grab a coffee so you can see the multiple.
I might even come over here, like, and just to open it up. It's a matter of, you do these things naturally in social situations, is what the reality is. When you're talking with a group of friends around at a bar or at a restaurant, you naturally make sure that everybody does. But as soon as you get under a stress of an interview or something in you clicks and you become hyper aware and it actually takes away from you. That's why when Zach talks about be on message, know what you're doing, that actually grounds you so that you can actually subconsciously just do this. You do this in real life. It's just when all of a sudden the camera and the lights are on, people get like a deer in the headlights.
Okay, so what do we got? Am I going? Oh yeah. So why don't you finish up this, and then we'll go on to some.
Right. So you want to make sure that you try to avoid glare, and what glare means in the sense that either the light is hitting the lens or your laptop, which will cause like a flare. I don't know if you have sometimes somebody's talking in there, and all of a sudden it's like it's not quite well. A wash. Sometimes if the backlight is too bright, the person on Skype or whatever they'll get really dark. So you have to make sure to go ahead and double check that. And you don't want to just be like this black silhouette speaking with this voice, because then it's very X-Files, really weird. So what you want to do is you want to practice. You want to just check it out. If you know you're going to have a big conversation or conference call or something, set up your lighting, try it. Call your mom, say, Mom, how do I look right now? Whatever, in that sense. And you want to make sure that your backgrounds are not distracting. So for instance, you wouldn't want to have this as your background because it's going to light too much. And if they're looking at your background because it's more interesting than you, then you're going to have a problem here. So obviously, this is an example of a bad background, even though he looks rather dashing there. And this is, what was it that you said?
This is really cool if you're James Bond, not so good if you're Joe from accounting. All right. This is just a wardrobe choice. So he's wearing black and he just blends into the back. He's captured by the background. And you become this joke. You know, the people in Cleveland will always know you as the person who wore the same thing as the red, the red wall behind you. Like, oh, I remember you. You were the guy who was just the talking head in the red wall. All right. So what do you wear? You wear something that makes you feel the part. If you're an accountant, just think about being conscious of representing yourself like someone who is interviewing for an accounting or finance position, but also feel comfortable. You want to be yourself on camera. You want to be natural and you want to be engaged. So I think it's just a matter of balancing those two things, not using dizzy patterns. Solid colors, which I think I have at a later point. I forget why. Here it is. Solid colors. Dizzy pattern stance. So if I were doing an on-camera interview, I think actually both Alberto and I would have some distracting things going on. Let's see. Yanan has a pretty good solid color jacket. And what else do we got? Oh, I think Josh has a good look. Would that be too light, do you think, for
It
you?
would depend on your background. If you're in front of a darker background, then you're going to really pop in that sense. If you're in front of a white background, that might not work as well.
Okay, so solid colors. I know you might have a fun blouse or shirt that has some stripes on it that you really like. That makes you feel like a finance person, but just wear something that's solid. Okay, couple examples. You can see a little dizzy pattern. Dancing. If you like men in plaid. Alright, so we got a little turn. The lines can be very distracting. If we were to see this or have a conference call with this guy, maybe you'd like to have a conference call with this guy, but you'd be distracted by the plaid. Alright, so that is some color and some sound and some whatever we just said, lighting. Now let's talk about angles. Essentially where you put the camera. So where you position the camera for the Skype call, if you're in an interview, where you want to encourage the people interviewing you to put the camera. Essentially, you want the camera at eye level, 90 degrees. So I guess 90 degrees if you're one
one part of the axes. You want the camera straight in front, so that the audience can see your eyes and at a straight angle. A couple bad things can happen if the camera is below you or above you. If the camera is below you looking up, it creates what I would call a heavy top. It looks like a very authoritative person. Your television audience is looking up your nose, your very big nose, because of the angle of the camera. And it's awkward. If the camera is above you, it gives a submissive look. I call it a mischievous bottom. So let's look at some examples and see how we like these angles. Last thing I'll mention is big foreground. Does anyone know what I mean by that? So I'm in the background here of the camera. Between me and the camera is the foreground, and there's a big foreground as far as the camera's concerned. Does anyone know? Can anyone tell me about that? Essentially what happens is things in the foreground look big. So if I stick my hand in the camera, it looks like a huge hand compared to my small body. So you want to be aware of that and not create any awkward angles with that. Camera assault. Move your hand, it's going to look like you're assaulting the camera with some huge palm. And the last thing I'll mention is think about separating participants on, say, a Skype call. Sit in a way where you can see your full body. Don't be behind someone, they're going to think you're half of a professional. You're someone who's not important to the team. We can't see the whole person. All right, check it out. What kind of angle is going on in this? What sort of effect does it have on our interpretation of this person? Heavy top. So we've got a camera coming down at a lower angle. Now this is a classic shot. Has anyone seen this before? All right, famous portrayal of Citizen Kane, the great New York Times journalist tycoon who thought he ruled the world. And so we've got a classic picture of him looking up at him, being the authoritative person telling the rest of the world how it is. So, gives us we don't necessarily want to take pointers from that guy type of feel.
This is a very common thing that happens with your laptops, because if you notice, when your laptop is low, hear me out, when it's low, and if it's here, if you end up angling it because you're trying to do a glare, then it's going to come up at you. You're going to get this effect with your laptop, because normally the camera's right there. Or if you're putting a camera on your desk.
Let me point out something else. Look at the eyes here, and compare the eyes with this picture here. Can anyone tell me what's going on with the different angles we're seeing this person versus this person? Yes, yeah.
I think for the person in the background, if the person is right here, the camera is actually here, like that. Like the person is kind of looking up to the camera.
This person's looking up to the camera?
The person in the back, yes.
Okay.
And the person's standing here waving. The camera's probably somewhere below.
Yeah, so the camera's below here. This is pretty much a straight-on shot, right?
Oh, okay.
That's what it is. It's a straight-on shot. And because he's pointing to a big poster of himself, you can't alter the angle of the picture that's already taken. But notice on this one, we have a full view of his eyes. Even though it's bigger, I think you'll still see where I'm going with this. We have a full view of his eyes, and he draws us in a little bit more. Here, we have a different angle of his eyes. We see a little bit of a slanty eye looking at us, like he's looking down at us. So 90-degree angle here better. Heavy top, not so good. All right, check this angle out. What's going on there?
It seems like it's from top down.
It's from the top down, mischievous bottom. So question for y'all. What do you do if you see these two guys walk into your house? Doesn't matter, you're already dead. It's too late. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said call the police.
Call the police. All right, it's too late. It's too late, you're already dead. So something's going on. And the filmmaker created that eerie feeling with this angle looking down at them like they're up to something, and gave us a less view of their eyes.
It seems like a security camera.
Okay. Security camera look. So you don't want to look like the person who's being seen on the security camera.
The airport people taking back.
Yeah. All right, excellent.
So how about this one? Second.
Yeah, it seems like she wants to become a ghost or something.
Wants to become a host?
Ghost.
A ghost. Okay. Like she wants to
Or
sort of
something like,
disappear?
yeah, she like looks very fiery or something. She's shooting for a horror movie or something.
Okay, good. Natalie?
Kind of meek.
Meek. Yes, she's meek. So, Natalie, if this person applied to you for a job, what might you be hiring her for? Probably not director of marketing, not director of sales, maybe admin. All right. Gives us that meek feeling. So if you're doing an interview where you're supposed to be an authority on your company, you don't want to be at a submissive, meek angle. This one, I'll just tell you where I was going with this. This is a slightly higher angle, but it's very slight. Now, this person is not as extreme as the one before, but it still looks like the individual here is up to something. Maybe they're making a call that's going to get you fired, or worse, who knows. It's a slightly higher angle that gives her just kind of a something's going on that's weird there, I feel. It's taken by someone who obviously didn't like Rick Santorum. A couple things going on. Yeah. But tell us what's going on.
The hand was used to like the big forehead.
Big foreground
Yeah.
camera assault. Oh my god. What about the angle? It's given the heavy top was from the bottom. So yeah, we don't want to vote for that guy just based on that picture. But this video conference. There's some good things going on. Suppose we were talking to these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Some good things going on, some things that they could do better in this shot. Break down for us. There.
The guy standing doesn't seem like he's engaged. Looks like
Okay.
he's just looking. So
But he's standing up. He's like has an engaged posture. But he's not conscious of how he's looking to the camera because he's off the screen. Helen.
I think we can put the camera a little bit further in order to cover all of the 6 people.
Yeah, we want all four. We want like check out this person. We have a full shot of her. Right? She has her business stuff together. Might be more inclined to listen to her than say this person who's just hidden behind someone, or this person who's off camera and doesn't really realize, or this person probably didn't even realize there was a person standing there. Oh, that's the intern, Joe. I forgot about you.
I guess the lighting is also a little weird. You can see that some people have glare on their face and some not. So maybe, the lighting is a little off too.
Yeah, what do you think? Alberta, did you see a little glare, a little not?
Yeah, what I would say is probably the thing that for me stands out most on this, if I was shooting this and coaching this, is that the team does not seem cohesive. You may
He
think
goes
that
right to the team cohesion just based on the picture.
because if I was to just analyze it from a visual point of view, I would say that he's the boss, but he's not very together with his team. He tends to stand above them. She's probably the most hard worker, clear of them all, and I would give that guy over there in the end probably the guy that's the most slacker. And these two people will probably vote the same every time on everything because they're blending into one. So if you're going to interview and you say, oh, you're making assumptions on that, but that's all subconscious. It's all subconscious behavior that you as a human being take on regardless if you're really aware of it. So to fix this, I would have everybody sitting there, if he is the leader, have him sit at the same level with his team, spread out, everybody lit the same. They can wear whatever they want, but then if I get onto a conference, now it's a unified front. Do you understand? Now it's a company that's all together with one, as opposed to a bunch of people who look like they're, hey, we're hanging out. Does that make sense?
All right, awesome. All right, so let's move on then to, we've gone through some basics. Now we're going to talk about, after I answer Levy's question, we're going to talk about video conferencing, camera interviews, and press conference, specifically what to do for those. So that
maybe you're going to cover it when you talk about like, what distance should the camera be from you. And I suppose it's different rules for the settings, but we'll cover that.
For video conferencing?
Well,
There is a phenomenon that happens, and you'll see it visually, that the closer you are to the camera screen, the more it looks like you're not looking at the person. Does that make sense? So you ever notice that sometimes you're Skyping and you're doing the eye dance between looking at the camera but looking at the person, but if you're looking at yourself in the screen or the person in the screen, it looks like you're not looking at the person? That has to do with the fact that you're too close to the actual camera, as opposed to taking a step back just a little bit further, and then when you're looking right down at the person, it looks as if you are looking into the camera. So that will help you even engage more with your conference. So you have to check, it's really about checking your camera, because each camera is set up differently. It's to just see. And a nice thing to do with Skype is you can just record, and then just see when does, okay, that's the distance right there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so and that's for video conferencing. We'll talk a little bit more about that in depth right now. For press conferences, on-camera interviews, you really don't have a choice. It's however the camera people set it up. The thing you might have some sway on is where they put the camera. If they put the camera down on the floor, you might say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm calling my agent. Can you put it where you're looking at me straight on, kind of thing. Or get the PR person down there to complain and get them to change it from wherever it is. All right, so video conference, eye contact, just as Alberto was saying. So there's this interesting thing that happens when you're on Skype with someone or doing a video conference where you're looking at them in your monitor, but you're not looking into the camera. Does that make sense? So the person watching you sees a screen of you looking off to the side.
I always just look at myself.
Okay, so you're looking at yourself, and the person watching you sees your eyes off to the side. And you lose some effectiveness because of that. Sometimes it's unavoidable, you do the best you can, but when possible, you want to look your audience in the eye. Suppose if one of the presidential candidates was talking directly to the audience, or the television audience, and tried looking in the camera, but was just off slightly. So you're like, this person's trying to tell me about making America great, but they're looking off to the side. You can lose some power. So how do you resolve that? I'll give you one way. You look directly into the camera. Now it's weird because you can't look at yourself. It's harder to look down at your notes, but what is your audience seeing? They're seeing
looking at you.
They're seeing you connect directly with them for eye contact. So step one, do your best to look directly into the camera. Step two is what Alberto mentioned. Suppose I've got the laptop here and I'm Skyping. Okay, so the camera is up here and then I'm looking at myself down on the screen. So there's a big difference when I'm really close. But suppose I'm way back here and I put a little zoom effect. So the difference between my eye going down a little bit to look at myself and maybe check my notes and see the other person and looking up at the actual camera is slight. So you can use the, what do we call this, the distance plus zoom option. So one, look into the camera as much as you can. Two, use the distance plus zoom option. Another thing, any questions on that? Yes, Jerry.
I had an instance where I had to record my interview. And
Record your interview?
Yeah, they record it and then
Send it to
it's a system, and then they ask like
They ask you a question, so you're like reading your own questions?
They ask like why like this company, and then you have to give a response, and then you record it.
Okay, fair enough.
And then the thing was like, I think when I looked into it, I think I looked slightly off center because my notes were on the very top of the monitor. So I don't know if it's my eyes are off. I thought that they were, but I'm not sure if my eyes were off because I was looking at this like a little below the camera.
Okay, so you're saying I love this company because of X, Y, Z, but your eyes are just off a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that it would have been more powerful if you were looking directly into someone's eyes when you tell them how much you want to work for them, how much you love their company.
You look directly into the camera.
Yeah, but it's tough. You got your notes.
Yeah.
You got your other things that are distracting you. So you do the best you can. You rehearse. You maybe have some short notes, just a few words that remind you where you are, so you can look, oh, remind me where I am, and then look back into the camera and use some of the things Alberto talked about by thinking of the camera as your pet, as an actual person rather than a weird metal object. Okay. Understated body language. What do I mean by this in a conference call? A
video conference, excuse me, I keep saying conference call, I'm sorry. Video conference, understated body language, what do I mean by that? Vanessa?
What came to mind when you said it was a lot of times when you do video conferences, you tend to like put your arms underneath the table and things, so you miss opportunities to sort of punctuate what you're trying to say. So like I'm a person who talks a lot with my hands, but for whatever reason, whenever I'm on video conference, I like put them down because I feel like I'm doing that.
Okay, yes, so that's one thing. You use less opportunity to communicate something with your hands. But what I want to suggest is even when you try to, your audience doesn't get it the same way. Because a video conference might be those 6 people we showed earlier. If each one of them is trying to do a little nuance with their hands, the folks in Cleveland who are watching, they don't get it. They don't say, oh, Sally was really passionate about that point. I could tell by the way she pumped her fist, because in her monitor screen, it was just a tiny piece. Has anyone ever had that experience when you're on a video conference where everyone in the room just uses their body language to agree? Yeah, we don't like this proposal. We don't like this. And it's clear to everyone who's there, but it's not clear to the people who are at the other end of the conference, because it's understated. They just can't see it the same way. Be aware of it. Don't rely on body language. Time delays. Maybe you've had a 2-second time delay. You want to understand that you're up against that. Handle that by using full sentences. Don't just say yes, and then have everyone laugh at you when they just hear a yes when they're already on to something else. And realize that it's not a quick back and forth. This is a make a statement, hear a response. Digest that, make your response. This is not a, what do you think? Do you, well, this, yes, no. It's not a quick back and forth. Realize you're up against that. Josh?
Just going back to the understated body language, are there, I guess for lack of a better way, just more overt things that you can do to emphasize points, as opposed to kind of the smaller gestures that are lost?
Sure, let's talk about them together. My first thought when you say that is there are things you might want to be careful of, because you don't want to make a camera assault, you don't want to get closer or do something that everyone on the other end of the video conference laughs. I would say about being clear with language. We'll talk about an agenda, we'll talk about preview, review, overview techniques to just be clear about what you're saying. So we have all decided in Portland that we do not like this new manufacturing plant idea. And we want to get your feedback on it, instead of just, well, we're so-so about the idea and everyone just kind of using their body language to think that that's what you do there. And we'll keep that question in mind as we go through some of the exercises, see what works and what doesn't work. Time delays, visual aids. All right, so we've got some folks who are going to show us a visual diagram later. Levy and Jianing. It's going to be tough. It's actually the map, the little statistical graph you have in your hand. So imagine trying to explain that to someone over video conference. You need to understand what you're up against. Really just have a clear system. And not try to do something awkward by saying, all right, look here. You might say, oh, have a clear verbal way to explain where you are. Maybe you can email folks materials ahead of time with categories. You might have section E, section B, section C. Say, if I could direct your attention now to section B, or if I could direct your attention now to the loss statement on the graph, just be clear about how you're going to compensate verbally for what's going to be a little bit difficult visually. Monotony and isolation. What I mean by this is you're here in the New Jersey office, you've got the folks in Cleveland who feel isolated and bored because they're just staring at a screen with 6, 10 people. They're not able to read your body languages effectively. They're just hearing the same tone of voice. So they don't feel as connected. They may zone out. What can you do to engage them a little bit more? What do you think? Maybe you can do some of the stuff Alberto mentioned in terms of grabbing the coffee. So I'm going to talk from a slightly different angle. I've been talking at you like this for 20 minutes. Now I'm going to talk to you like this. Maybe I'm going to adjust my seat. maybe I'm going to rotate participants. So Joe from accounting is going to sit just a little bit closer to the camera because now he's going to talk to you about this or that. You could also ask them questions so they don't just sit there for an hour without a back and forth engagement. So it feels like, it might feel like they're just watching a movie and they just zone out. They start sending each other little text messages, or they start throwing paper at each other, and they think you forgot about them. So you can actually ask. So Natalie, what do you think of disadvantage 2? You could also check in with the participants very quickly. I used to take roll on video conferences when I was working in the corporate world, and sometimes it would surprise folks. I would say, so Bob is, or it wasn't a video conference, this was actually conference calls, so it's a little bit different, but it had the same effect. I would go through the roll. I would ask the manager in Cleveland, is Sally there, is Joe there, is Bob there? And the manager would be like, well, she's coming, I don't know. It just sort of caught him off guard. He didn't realize anyone cared who was on the other end of this phone. And when you show people that you do care about who's on the other end of the call or the other end of the video conference, they don't feel as isolated. Okay. Overview system. So you want to be clear about where you are, because you don't have those visual cues that Josh and I were talking about. Clarify some of the things that are going on. Have an agenda beforehand that folks can follow along with. Preview. Now we're going to talk about the manufacturing idea in Toledo. All right, now we're talking about the details of the manufacturing plant in Toledo, but let's think about where this fits in with our whole agenda, a 30,000-foot view. And then when you get done talking about it, let's review. Use some of these simple techniques so people don't get lost in this conference call. Keep saying conference call, lost in this video conference. Okay. What else we got? On-camera interviews. Okay. So we're moving on now to an on-camera interview. So you're going to be interviewed. There's an interviewer. First thing I want to discuss is what I call this one-way, two-way conversation. What I mean by that is you're having a conversation with an interviewer who's asking you questions. But really, there's only one important conversation. It's a one-way conversation between you and the television audience. So it's deceiving. You feel like you're talking to a person, but you need to prepare it, package it, market it, sell it in a way where you're just talking to a television audience. And you want to realize what angles you need to be at, what things you need to say, what sort of nonverbal things you need to possibly not respond to. Sometimes an interviewer might do things to ruffle you, frustrate you, and you can think about just not responding to that, because I'm having a conversation with the American public. It's not about you asking me nasty questions. If I respond to the fact that I think you're asking me a nasty question, then all of a sudden I've corrupted my one-way conversation with the American public. Does that make sense? You're the one who brought that into your conversation with the American public by letting the interviewer influence you if they got negative. So even though you're having what we think of as a normal two-way conversation, always consider that your one-way conversation is what's important. Clothing, I mentioned feel the part with overview clothing. You want to be comfortable to an extent, but you'll see when we get into the camera interviews that there's really just no being completely comfortable. You're at this weird, awkward angle, and you need to find a way to be yourself and have that one-way conversation with these lights shining down on you, with your head tilted, with a suit that you may or may not normally wear. So feel the part, be as comfortable as you can, but realize it's not going to be perfect. Posture. So avoid slouching, upright and forward. And Alberto was explaining to me this concept of the camera not registering depth. So it makes it look, when you slouch, it makes it look even worse.
If you ever notice on films when they're shooting anything, the camera, the reason why people say, oh, the camera adds pounds, or the camera does that, the camera actually doesn't do that. What it is that the camera does not understand depth of field. So whenever you light something, they light it to create depth. That's why when we do the three-point lighting, it's not that the guy was up against the wall or too far from the wall. You couldn't tell. In that previous photo, do you remember the photo with the guy when we were doing the three-point lighting? You have to define the space behind. In the same way, what happens with your face and with your shoulder and your body. So, if I'm talking to you like this in person makes you feel like I'm really engaged with you, as if I'm really connected to you. However, on camera, the reason why you here can see me, because you're seeing me as a three-dimensional, because you're actually like a predator. You have two cameras right here, side by side, which create depth. The camera's a single lens. So if I was to talk to you like this, what it would look like on camera, it would look as if I'm really slouched, as opposed to really engaged. Do you understand that? Because the depth is not created. So it's very important that whatever posture you take in front of the camera is relaxed, upright, comfortable, more importantly, representative of you. Because if I talk to you like this simply looks like I'm very emphatic. On camera, this would look like. Do you understand that? Because the camera doesn't understand depth.
Good. Lack depth perception. Now, overstated body language. Now remember video conferencing, I said understated body language? Because you have a picture with 10 or so people in it and everyone is very small. With an on-camera interview, you have overstated body language. Let me have Alberto tell you a little bit about this. Truth times 10 and close-up moments that we see on camera.
Most of the reason why you're so affected by the movies, you ever go, in your movies you go watch it and all of a sudden you walk out and you're completely, oh my God, that was amazing and what have you, is because most of the time we live our life in what's considered 16 by 9. If you were to take your hands like this and do peripheral vision, do this right now. Take your hands, do this, don't bump anybody, and then just go to your peripheral. Then do the same here and go right above here. You essentially made 16 by 9. So when you're in a conference call with somebody and you are basically, it's as if you are sitting next to them. So what the camera does is it mimics that. So while there's a camera, the camera could be there, but if it's zoomed up to me in a close-up, anything I do is multiplied by 10. It's as if, you have to think of, that the person you're talking to is standing right there next to you, as if they were in a close-up. So if you widen your eyes really big, it's going to look 10 times more. Does that make sense? So in Skype or interviews, the reason why they always do it in a close-up is because it gives an intimacy to you and the audience. So if you're at home watching the presidential, whenever they're interviewing with Barbara Walters or whoever, and it's close up, it feels like you're talking with you. It's the same thing. It's the same principle that you in your life, you probably the most important moments of your life, you've lived in what's considered a close-up, that it was right here. So you just need to take that into account, that even though the interviewer may be this far away, the audience is actually as if they are right here.
Yeah, I like the way you summed that. So the audience is right here. So that one-way conversation with your audience, don't forget that they're right in your face. And they're seeing the nuances in your face. And you want to sincerely connect with them based on that. Vertical, in terms of where you want the camera, we talked about the 90-degree rule. So you want the camera at eye level with you. And if it's not, call your agent. Or say, hey, can we get the camera a little bit down there? Yada, yada. Horizontally, in terms of where we want the camera, or in terms of where we want our eye contacts to be. We want to be looking into the camera as much as possible, or as close as possible. So suppose I'm being interviewed right here. Sagnik is interviewing me, and the camera is right here. I ideally want to be looking as close to the camera as possible. So I might even look directly here. Now, that's a little weird, right? Sagnik's asking me questions, and I'm staring right here. The reason I'm doing that is because I want my eye contact, I want the audience to see more of my eyes. But in this two-way conversation, it's going to feel a little stilted. So, two ways you can get your eye contact as close to the camera as possible in terms of the horizontal level.
one, encourage them to put the camera closer to segment, or two, use the technique I just mentioned where I look a little bit to the right of segment. Does that make sense?
Midway between audience.
Yeah. So the camera's right here, you're interviewing me, I might just look right here and answer your, ask me a question. Go ahead, ask me a question.
How do you feel about our class?
All right, your class is great. I love your class. You bring so much professionalism, yada yada, to the class. So I'm answering this question by looking at it here. It's a technique that brings me closer to my audience, but we just have to understand we're using a medium that may feel a little awkward.
In the movies, they call it eye line. What will happen is, let's say for whatever reason they're shooting a scene, and either the star has to go away, or what they want in the background, they have to have the camera here, and the actor cannot be here. So what they'll do is they'll take a piece of tape, like they'll highlight it, and they'll mark an X, and they'll say, give me an eye line, and they'll put the X right there, and so the person, how he was doing, he's talking directly to a piece of tape as an X, even though on camera when they cut it together, or even if it's an interview, it looks like they're really talking to a real person.
Imagine, you're talking to a piece of tape that's in X, but that's the way to create a better one-way conversation with the television audience. We need to learn some of these games to play. All right, let's talk about what you're going to say during an interview. I suggest you think about your key messages before you go into this interview, and then further, think about how those are going to fit into sound bites. What is a sound bite? Vanessa.
It's like a short blurb of information that captures like the essence of what the person was saying.
Short blurb of information captures the essence, so-called a soundbite, because television statements will often play that short blurb. When you're giving an interview in 2020 is advertising for this interview, say, see what the CEO of this company said about their new technology. They'll play a little soundbite. So you want to think about what is that short little blurb that might be pulled out of context, and how can I fit my key message into that soundbite? And to take it a step further, think about the questions you're going to be asked in advance. What are the common questions? How can you answer those questions in a way that indicate your key messages? And how can you condense those down further to sound bites that the television networks are going to say, yeah, let's play that 5 seconds or that 10 seconds. Preparation you can do in advance to think about how what you're going to say fits into the on-camera meeting. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State, has this great quote where he says, does anyone here have any questions for my answers? So he knows what he's going to say before he begins the press conference on national security back in the 60s or the 70s. He just wants someone to ask him a question so he can say whatever he wants. You don't have to be that extreme, but that's essentially what you're doing when you think about what they're probably going to ask you and how you're going to fit your key message into a soundbite for your answer. So you'll come to the interview. You come to the interview with your sound bites ready based on common questions. Next thing I want to ask or cover is if you get positive or negative questions on during either an interview or during a press conference. The general rule is if you get a positive question, reiterate that question as you begin your answer. So if Vanessa asks me, tell me about how your new product has been so wildly successful. All right, so Vanessa asked why we've had so much success with our new phone. The reason we've had success is the marketing and the security features and yada, yada, yada. Right, now Priya, on the other hand, asks me, why is your company going into bankruptcy? I say, okay, so I don't want to reiterate that. I don't want to say, so Priya asked why we're going into bankruptcy. Let me tell you, I want to use a technique called blocking and bridging. So I want to block by somehow responding to her question and bridging to something that I want to talk about. So Priya asked me why my company is going into bankruptcy. I'm going to answer this question the following way. So yes, we've had some challenges. And those challenges have entitled us or given us an opportunity to look at new product lines, and that is exactly what we're doing with our massively successful new phone. So
So I block just by responding somehow, not by reiterating, but allowing me to bridge to something positive. So if you get asked a positive question, think about reiterating the positivity of that and then answering. If you get asked a negative question, think about a way you can block and bridge it to something positive. Make sense? Great. Lead the camera. We talked about this same thing, leading the camera or accepting the camera. So Alberto mentioned if, I guess what I wanted to talk about here is if you're on a panel, so or maybe in a remote site, and the camera is going to cut to you, or it's going to cut to someone else. So say Alberto is over on that end of the panel, I'm on this end of the panel. I ask a question that I'm going to direct to Alberto. I might say, okay, so our company has been massively successful because of all the IT stuff that we've had, and I'm going to have Alberto take charge of this next question.
Thank you, Jack.
So before I finish answering my question, I've already led to him. Now, it looks a little different because we're in real life here, but imagine there was a cut, and the cut would look a little less abrupt if I had just done the head tilt to the next person. Make sense? Okay. Practice. A lot of things you need to practice. Like I said, this is not a comfortable situation doing an on-camera interview. Practice the eye contact, that weird thing I showed you with Sagnick asking me questions, the camera being here, and me talking to an empty chair just because it's going to look better on camera. It's something you need to get used to and think about practice. Alberto has a speaking voice exercise I want to show you in a minute. The other thing I want to suggest you do a lot of practice on is this on-chance. Think about the common questions, think about how that fits into your key messages, and think about how that can be broken down into sound bites. Because the level of preparation that you need will surprise you. You may think you're prepared for an interview because you go over some questions the night before, but once you get in that studio environment, once you get off your game, once you realize how high the stakes are, you may realize that you did not get as fluent with this content as you really want to be. In terms of engaging a natural speaking voice, Alberto has this really interesting exercise, the 1, 2, 3.
So one of the things that we do in the MFA acting program at Mason Gross is that we try to find your natural tone. And everybody has a timbre or tone that is where their actual voice really sits. And when you are speaking in that natural timbre tone, people perceive you as authentic much more, and they're more willing to buy your message. And there's a very easy exercise that you can do. I'm going to do it first, and then I want you guys to do it, okay? What you do is you count all the way to 10, and then you go back down and you count to 3, but when you get to 3, you hold the tone. So this is how I find my natural timbre of voice. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. This is my tone of voice. As you can hear, it is the exact same tone of voice that I'm teaching, i.e. conferencing in. Do you hear the difference? As opposed if I was talking to you like this, you immediately hear, or if I'm trying to sound deeper, you immediately hear the difference in that, right? So just do this exercise with me, okay? So we're going to go all the way to 10, and then we're going to 1, 2, 3, we're going to hold 3, and then I want you to say, after you hold 3, you're going to go 3, hello, my name is, and actually say your name. This is a wonderful tool to make sure that when you're going even into an interview, that when you introduce yourself, you're coming across as authentic. And it goes, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. Hello, my name is. That is the tone. So if you're ever talking with somebody and all of a sudden you think that you're talking really high, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. That's where I'm supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Just reminds you to get back into your natural voice. And we want to find your natural voice in this stilted, bizarre medium that confuses us sometimes. Okay, press conferences. So, you're announcing a new product launch, the company just spilled a bunch of oil, something bad happened, something good happened, something that you want to hold a press conference for. You choose a press conference as the CEO or as a management in a company. And I want to ask you why you're choosing a press conference. Why would you hold it? And I'll give you the answer I'm looking for. It is that not only do you have a message that you're trying to portray to your audience, but you are important as the key messenger. So if you just wanted to get the message out,
You could issue a press release and say, we're sorry we spilled a bunch of oil. We're really excited about our new phone. But the fact that you are an important part of this message is why you hold a press conference. So you need to think about both. You need to think about who are you to this company and how are you as the messenger going to enhance this message and how you're going to make the message as powerful as possible. So you read a prepared statement and you think about who you are and how you can add to that with your personal credibility. Statement length. You want to think about a newsworthy press conference because you can't force the TV networks to rebroadcast your entire press conference. You can't pick and choose which messages they pull out. You just need to think about what helps them do their job effectively. Does that make sense? So you're going to hold a press conference. What is going to help these news networks do their job effectively? I'm going to give them the tools they need to represent me as best they can. If your press conference is too short, it may look like you're hiding something, may look like you're wasting the time of these reporters who got here to hear your press conference. If it's too long, you get into another problem. You may bore your audience. It also may offer too much. You don't want to give these reporters too many things to pick from where they can rebroadcast on the 6 o'clock news. You want to keep it nice and concise, chock full of your good key sound bites. If you get some questions in this press conference, I suggest using the same technique with the interview. If you get a positive question, reiterate the positive question, answer it. If you get a negative question, use the blocking and bridging technique. All right, any questions? Excellent. So we are going to move on. We're right on schedule. We're going to move on. First, we're going to do the video conference. Then we're going to do the on-camera interviews. And we're going to do the press conference. And the way we're going to do this is, let me pull out the shot. We're going to start with the live-long video conference, but in terms of where we're going to be, we're going to have, okay, Alberto's going to set it up. So we're going to have, we are going to have, all right, so did everyone glance, even if you didn't do the live-long thing, did everyone glance at it and maybe quickly read the scenario? You'll have a few minutes to do that as we're getting settled in the room and getting set up. So as we're moving to our specific locations, if you're just watching, you're going to come with me to a different room, and you're going to try to read the scenario really quickly so you know what's going on. What we're going to have for this life insurance, we're going to have Natalie and the rest of the class. Natalie's gone, but the rest of the class is going to be in room 306. We're going to cram in there. Alberto's got it all set up. Let's have Mumbai, which is Yang and Helen, in here. And Yang, you're set up on Skype, right? Okay. And then New York, which is Sagnik and Jerry, you are going to be in room, let's see. You're going to be in room. Okay. The rest of the class, we're going to go to 306. And Sagnik and Jerry, you're going to be in 304. 304. So, but yeah, but let's do this first. Can you? Yeah, let's all go to the 306 together, and then we'll have you three sit in a corner together and get your Skype on.
Who is three?
Yang, you, and Natalie. You're gonna put your computers together and trade Skype names and get it set up so the Skype. So everyone who is not involved in this, we're going to come cram in room 306 and get ready to watch.
Do we take our stuff or do we keep our stuff here?
I would take anything valuable. You need a computer, right? Laptop, right?
Yeah, but I thought we are going to come here and. I mean, I can take my laptop. I don't know.
You're going to. We're gonna come in room. All right, we're first. Everyone's gonna go to room 306. Just everyone go to room 306. Let's start there. And you're yeah. You can bring your laptop with you, but you're gonna use my laptop to log on to Zoom. Nick and Yang. All right. So this. All right. So you two position yourselves to talk some annuity processing stuff, and then hopefully the other stuff will come on in a minute. If it doesn't come on, as long as we can see you, that's the main important thing, and you can hear us.
Oh, ours? Yeah.
You guys hear us?
Yes, yeah,
Yes, yes, can hear you. Can you hear us?
yeah.
Yes. We cannot see that.
I can see Nat. I cannot see Static.
Can anyone see me? Yeah, we can see you. I cannot see that. I can see Yang.
I cannot see Static. I can see Nat. Alright, we have everybody.
Can you see us then, everyone, Yang?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all for joining today. My name is Nat Scotto, VP of Processing and Sales. Can I know who else is on the call, please?
Yes, this is Jan Mulligan. I'm the head of the annuity processing. I'm in Mumbai, India.
And this is Helen Yu. I'm the project manager. Hello.
This is Mr. Sakit Saha, and I'm the head of annuity sales. I'm in the New York City office. This is Jerry. I'm VP of Information Technology, and I'm also in New York.
Okay, great. I hope you're all doing well today. I thought it best to...
Everyone's doing,
I thought it best to schedule this call to address some of the issues we've been facing with our new online system. My hopes is that we can leave this call with some kind of understanding as to how we can move forward. I really believe that ultimately, if we really improve this online system, it'll help our goals and we'll see the profits due to it. I guess first let's hear from maybe some of you regarding some of the challenges you're facing regarding the implementation of this new system.
I think I'm fully supporting the online system. The problem I see is it takes such a long time to complete the online procedure, and I think my clients, they're getting anxious. If they get too long, they don't want to have like a second application after 40 days of waiting period. So we really hope that the sales team can help us facilitate the whole procedure to make it more efficient, and us as a back office will fully support.
I'm the project manager, so I think my main role is listen to you guys and then follow your final decision.
This is the head of annuity sales. The online system is actually hard. It's very difficult for me to go and convince the sales and the bankers to use this new technology. Already they are having, it's very difficult to get customers and teach them this new system. And I really do not want our sales targets to go down, and I hate the slow processing. So if the system makes things more slower, then my sales targets will go down, and I have never missed on sales targets in my life, my career.
Okay, Stackman, as I understand it, you're worried that you'll be losing sales with some of your bankers?
Yes.
You're worried about? What if we were to somehow keep some kind of skeletons team behind doing the paper online processing, and at the same time training most of our force to, you know, really go hard at the online system?
Sure.
And we can always incentivize them to also keep the paper applications as well.
Okay, I mean, I dislike the slow processing because if the 90-day limit is reached, I mean, and we do not get them trained at that time, then our staff will likely lose the sales. So the 90 days is my biggest target.
Well, I think as a back office, we can help or train your salespeople a little bit more about how to fill up information more accurately. So in this way, if everything move up to speed, we can usually finish everything in 23 days. It will be much more efficient than doing by your salespeople hand submit the documents manually.
Sure, I mean, I like the option of having the paper options too, in case we lose on the online banking system, we lose days and we lose sales. So having both of them open is a better idea.
Yeah, so I'm the VP of IT, and my problem is I believe we need to gain more acceptance for online because we need more, in order to make the system better, we need more cash to do it, and I believe that if there's greater acceptance, then it will justify the cost, because right now all my money is tied up with the processing people, there's 125 of them, and in order to make the system fix the system and make it good, I need $10 million, and then I also need like $1 billion in sales revenue to generate to justify it. But I believe that but the thing is, in order to get $10 million, we're going to have to lay off some processing people, about 40. So that's a problem. Like either my problem is system, or like to lay off some people to make up the money to make the online system.
Okay, well, perhaps we can cross-train those individuals that you would have to lay off and I guess allocate their services to other departments within the organization.
I thought that what I gather is that we need to lay off 40 people in order to get enough money in labor, because 10 million is basically the labor that we pay them to do their job. So I don't know if cross-training them would help the situation, because it's a money situation.
Right, so what do you suggest?
Well, we could either maintain what we have now, or in order to fully have the system up and running, we probably need $10 million, unless we get budget elsewhere to give to allocate to my department for the $10 million. I don't know if that's possible.
I'm kind of confused where this question is directing at. Are you directing to us or directing at Natalie?
Yeah, no, like is there $10 million elsewhere that either you profit that you can donate to the IT team to make the system, to fix the system and get it up and running?
Well, can we perhaps take the budget from the processing team? Can we reduce the headcount in processing at all if the online system gets up and running?
Well, we
To
have.
help the goal, reduce headcount, 40 people headcount in order to get the $10 million. Because I think that all the processing team all the IT money is tied up in processing right now.
Well, I think we have no problem to, if we can find the right position for the other 40 people, to retrain them and put them somewhere else. But I don't think we should carry the budget. Because over the past, it's always the sales team get all the bonus when performing well. And the sales team has always been cost center, so we cannot put more money for that purpose.
I have a question to the Mumbai office also, which is my concern, although I know you guys are going to have paper applications, and you think at the Mumbai office that you can train people with the online system. In the past, it has also been told that you are going to do the online system, but it has always been a delay. What are the corrective actions that you think you are going to take in the future in order to not have the delay anymore, and you are more confident that that's going to work and it's not going to lower down sales?
Are you talking about online system?
Yeah.
I'll direct to you. You're the project for online.
I think, can we get some help from the IT department, Jerry?
Yeah.
Are you gonna, support us to, try your best to eliminate the errors that will happen when we type the client's information into the computer, things like that. I think if we can turn, after work or something, or sometimes else, we need your help.
Have you guys tried out taking help about the online system from the IT previously?
I'm sorry. Can you clarify your question again?
I mean, in the past also the online system the online processing has been. You guys have tried the online processing, and did you take help from the IT previously? Was it a different team? Why was it not efficient at that point?
So you mean why this online system is not efficient?
Yeah. Now, how do you think that it's going to be efficient right now or in the future? And why was it not efficient in the past? Like in the past, also you guys have worked with the IT, but it has been slow. How do you think it's going to be efficient now?
So I think it's slow is because maybe the bankers and the salespersons, they cannot get used into how to fill out this online form. But I think as long as we can get some help from the IT department or somewhere else, I think we can improve this speed of typing, and also we can eliminate the errors. So I think as long as you give us maybe a couple of weeks, let all the people in the department get used into this online system, it will not be a problem anymore.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to just maybe summarize our points. I have 4 points to make. First of all is we will help to train the sales team to make sure you reduce the input errors, and that's probably will be the biggest problem you have on the other end. Second is we will try to, if everybody moving at full speed, we can get everything done in 23 days, and it will easily meet the 90-day requirement, so we can secure a fund. And third thing is we feel like the processing team has always been very supportive to the sales team, and we have always been a call center, so this investment for the online system, the cost should be variable by the sales team. We really cannot afford another expense. And the last but not least is if we can save money from save all the papers and save all the labors from filling up the paperwork, we actually can save some cost. I believe the cost will be some way we can make up the expenses for the online system. And that's another reason why we strongly suggest just keep an online system rather than having a paper writing system at the same time.
Thank you.
I suggest we follow up on this, maybe next week, have another call to discuss what's transpired since, and see if we can just make some decisions from there.
Okay, thank you for the time and have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Nice meeting you guys.
Come back, come back.
Goodbye. All right.
这应该没我什么的，我就是执行你们最后的决定。
You have been charged of implementing.
对这是最后的。
对啊，你就说 however salespeople has been fairly slow to use it, person has been slow to right now. You are eager to know how to do it.
对，应该就是我就听你们。
但是他为什么老是问你这
discuss
个
之后？
？OK。因为他在问你，这就是问那个。
对。
然后那个问你们那个 IT， 我都不知道你们 IT 的那个东西。
什么？我都没太听懂他什么问题。
你东西都拿了，我就放这儿了。电脑。放块电脑。
Yeah, I don't mind doing that part. Then the second part is, I think, please also discuss some interesting historical insights that can be gleaned about actual events and historical contribution of the graph to the field of statistics. But I could, you know, just go and I'm just going to put it.
All right. You want to briefly mention War and Peace? I mean,
What?
In case someone has been watching it on BBC.
Oh, what was I mentioned?
War and Peace, the
War?
series.
Oh, I don't know. What is it?
That's the same, historical background. Of the,
Oh, do you want me to go about the?
I mean, I can sort of, riff.
Should we go? Should we go? Should we? Okay. Where's us? We can't see us.
Well, that's because
Oh, okay. Are we going to go back and forth like a discussion, or
I
are we
think,
going to go?
I think that would be better.
Yeah, kind of like.
What's sort of, pass it to you.
Oh, okay, fine. This is like totally. Okay, get in. Are you in? You're not in.
Not
Get
in.
in. Get in equally. Okay. And should we take questions from them also?
Yeah.
Okay. How's our positioning? I think our positioning is pretty good.
it's good, yeah.
I think we should get our microphone on. You starting or am I starting? Someone must start. It's welcome. So. Sure.
Good afternoon.
I think it's jammed.
It's John.
I don't know. But probably so.
Okay.
Your video's turned on.
Starting over. Yeah, this is really helpful. Thanks. The one with the Fahrenheit and Celsius.
Yeah.
But anyway, I marked up some of the names because
Yeah,
it's
okay.
it's a bit blurry.
Who's next?
So now like
This is too close.
yeah, right. All right. So
I'm gonna go see what's going on.
okay.
What's going on up there?
It dropped.
Are you trying again?
Yeah, they put the wall back in.
Hello.
Are we there?
Yeah, but I'm not seeing the video turned off. Hello. Oh, whoops.
Can you see this?
No, I don't see a video, but I can hear you.
Hold on 1 second.
Here.
Wait. There.
Hello. That's okay.
Yes. Should get a shoot.
Make a snap.
Not sure how. Oh yeah, that can work. Not sure how, but somehow it seems to work. But you want your leads?
Yeah.
Okay, this part doesn't count. Okay,
You can hear us though, right?
We're
yeah, we could hear you, but give us 1 second.
We're having some technical difficulty.
Yeah, just
Take your time.
okay. Oh gosh. Okay. What?
Yeah, I was just put like there. Spots.
Hello everybody, welcome. Today we're going to do a short presentation about Charles Menard's chart, which you guys have, which is basically a story of the French mission that they had when they went to war with Russia. So I'm going to hand it off to Janine. He's going to give us a little bit of an overview, and then we're going to just have a back and forth discussion. We'd love to hear questions from you guys as well as we go along.
Thank you, Levy. In the year 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte, the emperor of the French Empire, commanded his grand army on an expedition to invade Russia. Their objective was to take over their capital city, Moscow, in a series of swift and effective campaigns. And if you refer to the chart, on the very left-hand side, you start out with a with a river that's called Kovno. The W is pronounced like a V, and you'll notice that there's a light gray bar, a massive light gray bar, that represents the overall strength of the French army in terms of manpower, and it progresses from left to right. Now, the interesting thing about this chart is that it represents a number of criteria, measurements, not just one. On the one hand, the bar, the thickness of the bar represents the manpower of the French army, and it decreases over time. On the other hand, the chart is also a map, the left being the west and the right side being the east. And the bar also serves as an arrow indicating the directions and the path of the French army as they travel from west towards Moscow in the east. Now, Debbie, did you want to talk a little bit about the how it decreases?
Yeah, so as you could see, the thickness of the bar as we go along towards the right side of the paper decreases. And what that indicates is actually the loss of men. Each millimeter represents 10,000 men. So what you could see quite clearly is as Napoleon advances towards Moscow, towards Russia, he loses soldiers, and you could just see it like illustrated, so it's quite clear, the percentage, and he's just losing and losing and losing as he goes along. As you get to right, all the way to the right of the page, you can see there's a black bar underneath the gray bar, and that bar actually represents Napoleon's retreat from Moscow all the way back to the French territory. And again, we see the same pattern of this bar, and now the bar is going to be moving across the other way, and as we go along, the bar decreases till eventually it shows his actual return to the French territory with only 10,000 men.
That's right. Thank you, Levy. And another important measurement that we want you to pay attention to is the element of temperature. If you look at the very bottom of the chart, the temperature, there's a line indicating the fluctuation of temperature as they enter further into the winter. And as we know, winter time in Russia is not a good time, and it's not a good time. And if you went unprepared, you're going to have a bad time. So, interestingly enough, as we see the black bar decreasing drastically as they progress towards the winter, the loss of life, the drastic decrease in the thickness of the black bar corresponds to the drastic decreases in temperature. Now, for instance, let's look at one of the points here. Now, can we find Smolensk and Doroboy on the map? The cities Smolensk. Okay. On the bottom of the chart, for instance, there's this one area that says -21 and something in French, and the number 14. That actually represents November 14, and that temperature is actually -15.25 Fahrenheit, and which is also -26 in Celsius. And as you can see, when it reaches a very low temperature, above it, the black bar has suffered a significant decrease. So this is an indication that a great number of casualties that the French army endured was due to inclement weather. Now, just to give you something, just put it into perspective here, the French army, when they entered Moscow on the very far right, is approximately 100,000 men. When they were forced to leave Moscow because the Russians employed a tactic called the scorched earth policy, meaning they destroy and otherwise torch all buildings and resources that could be used by the invading army, the French army was forced to leave Moscow and retreat towards French-controlled territory. And interestingly enough, they left Moscow with the same number of men. So not a lot of men died as a result of arson in Moscow. So they lost more men to the elements of nature than actual combat or any other human activities.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to clarify, the bottom part of the chart there's two. It signifies two things. It signifies the weather and the dates of their retreat. And there's some key elements, some key dates. I believe the chart that you have is the French one, so it's a little bit difficult to kind of read the weather and the dates on it because they were using different units then. But just to give you an indication, when they leave Moscow, the temperature is 32, so that's kind of quite cold, freezing cold. And you can see as they progress in their retreat, the temperature just continues to drop further and further more. So, in summary, this chart really shows a few things. So it shows the number of troops that they leave with, and as also the decrease in the troops. It shows the advance of the army both in longitude and latitude, because you could see as they move towards the right of the page, that's them advancing more towards east, and you could see also the graph goes up and down a little bit. That's also longitude. If you were to put this on top of a map of Europe, this would actually signify exactly where their march went through, exactly which cities and which parts of Europe. So that's signified on the map. We have some other interesting, we got the dates, we got the temperature, those are all signified on this. Kind of this very simple chart, that's all it is, it's one piece of paper, but it's giving a full story. Most of us would think if we wanted to give a story of this major campaign, you would have numerous charts and numerous graphs showing all these different things. So the interesting thing that Charles Menard managed to do was take all these concepts and just put them all together on one page, which is really, I don't think he's ever been termed the father of statistical graphs, but he really was one of the first people to make statistical graphs and show how powerful they are when we want to get our point across. An interesting thing about this graph is if you look at it and you understand it, so you could see, they left with 422,000 people and they come back with 10,000 people. It really tells a story that he wanted to get across, which was that war is bad. This graph has also been termed the image that made a nation cry, because it's such a simple thing and you see such tragedy in it and it's like, he doesn't even need to write it out or spell it out for you in order for you just to kind of understand this concept of like, wow, this was a real failure. This should have not happened at all. Jenning, is anything you want to add, or anything you want to add?
That was a great summary by Levy. Thank you. And I just wanted to add that I just wanted to testify that personally, when we were researching this graph, when we were looking at the story behind it, there really wasn't much else we could learn from the graph. Everything that we found out from text, from articles, confirmed our understanding of the graph once we had a pretty good look at it. So in that respect, I have to agree that the author of this graph, Monsieur Menard, really did his job. He really exemplified the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's really mind-boggling. And that concludes our presentation.
Come back to the room, and we'll do the interview. Great work.
Thank you.
All right.
Done.
Done.
It was good, eh? We winked that one. Something we
Great summary there.
not winked. Well, we winked it because we didn't prepare together.
Huh?
So the winking was we didn't prepare together.
Yeah, well, it's done, so.
And they bounce their eyes back and forth on an interview, they're looking like that. Always look at the eye that is directly closest to camera for your focal point.
Okay. That's
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
It just, it steadies your eye.
How does it help?
And
I was gonna
it
ask.
also opens up, because you see more of a wider eye on camera. Okay, I am ready. So I'll count you down. So what'll happen is I'm gonna start it, and I'm gonna say 3, 2, and then I'll point you further go, okay? All right, hold on a second.
And
Look
Yana,
up there.
you can just do a little vocal introduction. So we're here today to do this, boom, boom, and I'll start with the questions.
Okay, great. And we're going in 3.
So we're here today to do on-camera interview with Priya, where the main subject of the interview is going to be about MBA interview. I'm going to be the interviewer as the dean of the business school, and Priya is going to be the applicant who is trying to apply for Rutgers for her MBA degree. We'll get started right now.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Priya.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I was looking at your applications and I find it very impressive. And I just want to maybe start by asking you a little bit about yourself. Can you just tell me some highlights about your background and experiences?
Sure. Thanks for bringing me here, though. And so I graduated from UMDNJ with a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry. And then following my graduation, I was working as a postdoctoral fellow in oncology space in academia for about 7 years. And then after 7 years of my postdoc experience, I kind of gathered that that was not the space I wanted to be for the rest of my life. So in order to gain more experience in the business side of the industry, I decided that I would like to go back to business school and gain more skills and some leadership qualities. And so in conversation with some of my colleagues who had pursued this route, I started applying to business school, and Rutgers Business School has been one of my top choice, and that's why I'm here today.
Great. Well, since you mentioned that Rutgers Business School is one of your top choice, so I was curious, why do you choose Rutgers?
Well, actually, there are a couple of reasons. The first being that Rutgers Business School is one of the top business schools. I believe it's top 10 in the pharmaceutical and healthcare MBA.
Great, you've
And,
done some of your research.
Oh, thank you. And so that's primarily one of the reasons, and my passion has been in the healthcare industry, and that's something, excuse me, and that's something I have been wanting to continue with as my career. And secondly, I'm from New Jersey, so for me, I do have a family, and I would probably not want to relocate. And having the choice of having the pharma MBA in Rutgers, I couldn't think of a better option than Rutgers Business School.
Okay, great, wonderful. And also, you mentioned that in your applications you managed a team before. I found it very interesting. And I was just wondering, when you were working with a team, did you ever have to deal with a difficult person? And if you have, could you just tell me a little bit about the situation and how do you manage that?
Sure. So it was, just to give you a little perspective, I was managing a small team of people. So I was leading a team of 3 people. And so I was responsible for coming up with the proposals. It was a research institute that I was working for. So I had to come up with the research proposal and delegate the responsibility to the rest of my team, and was responsible for executing the project as well. So there was a research fellow who was actually working for me, and we were in a team together. And she was a graduate, a degree holder, but didn't come with a lot of experience. So I kind of noticed that when she first joined my team, there was a delay phase. And for us in the research area, delegating and executing responsibilities on a time basis, and being on the timeline and executing it is very important. So over time, over a few months, I kind of realized that she wasn't on top of the pace, and I sort of had a one-on-one meeting with her and figured out that she was very interested in learning, but she was hesitant to bring it up to me. And from that point, I kind of guided her, set her for some development training processes, and within next month or so, she was up and running full speed.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks.
Excellent. You're definitely a very strong candidate.
Oh, thank you.
Since if you're going to be, in Rutgers for your MBA, this is a question I always ask all my candidates. We believe in people who has a future plan and who has, more of a precise direction of where they want to go about their future. So my question to you is, where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
That's a great question. All the 10 years is quite a long time, but the reason I'm coming back to business school after graduating from my PhD degree is I would like to be a future leader in the industry, and I feel that Rutgers Business School can provide me with that skill set, and that's how I envision myself in 10 years from now, that I would head a small team and then, be in a leadership position and take it from there.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And we're running out of questions, so that will be the end of the interview. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me here.
Thank you very much.
Good, great job. I was hoping Priya would make a mistake and accidentally glance to the side or something, and we could have a big, oh, didn't that look weird? But she was so engaged with her interviewer. I think she really realized that the power of this interview, as we were watching it on the screen, was how much she was connecting with her interviewer. And this gives you a sense of how awkward it can be when there's a room full of people staring at you. And what the important takeaway is that you had a sincere connection with someone who was sitting 3 feet away from you. And I think Priya really just captured that by forgetting about us and concentrating on the person who was interviewing her. And like I said, she didn't really give us too many learning opportunities because she never tilted her head to the wrong way, and we didn't see anything awkward on the screen. But with that, any other comments? Any other thoughts, Vanessa?
I thought the interaction between you two was, what's your name?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it was really, really good. They kind of fed off of each other. Like, I noticed that the way she framed the questions was very conversational. So it wasn't like, tell me about yourself. It was, I usually ask candidates this question, or you just said this. Can you talk to me more about that? So it felt like she was trying to put her in a nice, relaxing mood, and Priya's tone was like really just soft. I wanted to hear more. So I thought it was really good interaction between them.
Yeah, well, good interaction. I was wishing she would ask a difficult question that would frustrate her, and we could see on camera, like, oh, it looked abrupt when we saw it on the screen, but none of that happened. So, well, maybe we can get some really nasty questions in the next interview.
I have a question. What do you do in this case when you have hand gesture?
Oh, okay, so that was an interesting one. I noticed every once in a while we saw a hand on the screen. I would say it looked a little awkward when I saw it because it was just every once in a while a hand coming up and down. It wasn't a huge deal, but I would say just try to keep the animation and keep the sincerity without using your hands, because when they end up in the wrong spot, they may look a little awkward.
Would it have been less awkward if the camera,
Yes.
okay.
If the camera frame had changed,
Yeah, had
yes.
like camera on her torso, would it have been less awkward when she did this?
Yes.
Yeah, because we would have seen the full engagement of it. It wouldn't just be a hand coming up and then disappearing every once in a while. Yes, Liv?
Unrelated, well, indirectly related. I had a hard time watching the screen because I don't know if anybody saw this. I could hear her before
The sound.
the sound, and so it gave me like a little bit of a headache.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie to that. I was just watching her. Like I couldn't concentrate on watching her.
Yeah, I thought about that as that was happening, but I think the takeaway for this class is to concentrate on the screen and see if we see anything that teaches us something.
No, yeah,
So-
I'm not saying it wasn't a learning thing. I'm just
Yeah,
commenting.
no, I thought of that, exactly that. I thought, well, it's a little difficult to watch the screen, but we'll just try our best. Okay, great, let's go do the next interview, and then we'll get into the press conference after that.
So our interview is information interview, and this interview will tell people about how to give some suggestion about how to apply the MBA program to Rutgers Business School, and also some information about living in New Jersey. Okay.
So I'll count you in, so it'll be 3.
Okay, so welcome to another information interview with our candidate Wen from Rutgers Business School, and she is alumni of Rutgers Business School, and she will graduate in this May 2016. Hi, Wen.
Hi, Erin.
I say hello to our audience.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. So you are from Rutgers Business School. So can you tell us more about? Is it difficult to get into Rutgers Business School? And normally, how many international students they admit every year?
I think it's not too hard to get into RBS if you meet the average level of our current students. For example, the GMAT score, and if you have a good work experience and you show your passion for Rutgers, you will get into it, I think. For the international students, I think Rutgers now have more and more international students. In my class, about 1/3 of the students are international.
Okay, excellent. So another question is, we audience talk about that. They found there are a lot of campers in Rutgers. So do you know which campus is this MBA program located?
Yeah, obviously I know. We have a lot of campuses, right? Like in Brunswick, Newark, and Camden, and RBS building located in Newark. Most of our MBA class where we will have are in Newark campus, but you can also choose some class that takes in New Brunswick.
Okay, so you mentioned Newark. I searched from the internet that Newark is not a very safe place to live or something like that. Can you talk us about that?
Yeah, honestly, Newark is not a safe city, as you know. Yeah, as a student, we can receive the alert of robbery almost every day from our public security department. But trust me, if you take care, it's not a big problem. It shouldn't be a reason that you give up Rutgers.
So, do you live in Newark or some
No, I
towns?
live in Harrison, which is very close to RBS building. As I know, not many students live in Newark.
Okay, so they choose better is to live and they just go.
Harrison is very safe.
Okay, excellent. So, also Newark is a city so near to New York City. So is that an advantage to seek a job?
Yeah, I think it's a big advantage because compared to other cities, New York City will provide you more opportunities. There are many career fairs happens every month and many startup companies. If you want to seek a job in cities, I think Rutgers is a good choice for you.
So excellent. So We also want to know some about money issues. So, how much do you usually spend on the rent apartment in each month?
For me, the rent is about $600 per month. If you live in Harrison or Kearney, which are very close to Newark campus, I think the average rent is about $500. But it also depends. If you want to live in some better community, the rent can be as high as $1,000 a month.
Okay. Also, our audiences say that a lot of them don't want to cook every day. So, yeah, I just want to ask you about: is it easier to eat outside and the price is okay, or just a little bit expensive than you just cook it by yourself?
I think the price is okay, but there are not too many choices.
Okay, so there are nice restaurants in the town where you live in Harrison?
Yeah, there are not too many restaurants in Harrison, but you can eat in the school's cafeteria. It's good.
Oh, really? Can you tell us about, do you have a meal plan we can choose from the Rutgers school, or you just go there, buy the stuff by yourself?
You mean the meal plan?
Yeah.
You can choose.
So you
can
don't
choose whatever you want.
Okay, so you don't use that.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you to be here today, and we appreciate your information to share with us. Thank you very much.
Good, excellent. Comments for about this interview?
I think it was a good conversation rather than an interview. Like, it's not a very strict interview, and that's how informational interview should be like.
Okay. All right. Other comments? Josh?
I thought at the very beginning, when I was looking at, I think, the lights or something real quick, like back and forth, but then she settled into the actual conversation.
Yeah, did anyone notice her eyes before the questioning started? She's going back and forth, and it looked very abrupt on the screen. Like, what's going on? Am I being attacked? We're worried. We're worried for her safety when we see her on the big screen. It's that truth times 10. That tiny eye movement made us wonder what was going on in that studio. Other comments? Yes.
I think if maybe given the background, the informational session is okay, but it's just she's keeping on turning, like switching chairs and moving her body. So you can feel it's very casual, but I guess if you're doing a very formal interview, we probably better stay still.
Yeah, well, I think we want her still even here, right? Because it was a little distracting. Like, she was moving her eyes a little bit at the first, and there was still, I didn't notice too much, I was concentrating on some other things, but at least one person noticed some body movement that was distracting. That even though it's a light subject, we still would have wanted a stable body stance for more effective. Let's talk about this casual tone. So it was a casual tone. My thought was, she became aware of us in the room as the audience. And Eric even joked about it, like, say hi to the audience. I felt like she was aware when she was answering the questions that she was talking to us and we could understand her because we were in the room with her. And I feel like she forgot that the point is the one-way conversation with the television audience. I just didn't think she was working that hard to really portray to someone who wasn't in the room. And I think part of that was understandable because we were all here, we kind of laughed at some of the stuff, and we got it because we were in the room. But I think someone who doesn't know Rutgers, someone who's not an MBA student, someone who's not in this room would look at the tape of that interview and say, I'm really not getting a full flavor. And we can't really play, we don't have time to play the thing back and pretend you're not Rutgers students, but I think if we did, you'd say, you know, this is just not bringing me in. This is not someone who's really working to engage. In contrast to our last interview, and Priya really zeroed in on that interviewer and created that one-way conversation with the television audience. And it's understandable, and it's a stage of development, but I think this is an example of one that didn't go far enough. Any other thoughts? All right, so let's do our press conference. So Josh is going to make a prepared statement, and we've got a couple of interviewers who are going to ask some questions.
He's standing.
Yeah, you want to stand?
Yeah,
For-
I'll get a
okay.
podium or a
Yeah,
teleprompter maybe.
Podium. We could pull this table out for you, or we could use, what could we do? Yeah. Let's do this. We'll pull the no teleprompter. Oh yeah, you just have your flash cards.
You can put
Yeah.
a chair on top of the table.
Chair on top of the table. It's not a bad idea. Actually, why don't we just have you stand? Can you just have stand on the table? Is that okay? Okay. And you two are the
We're the
interviewers?
reporters, yes.
Okay.
Do we stay, do we, does it matter?
This one right here.
Let's see.
So I gotta get the
Jerry,
lights and everything.
Jerry.
We'll have you,
We
you can stand. You can stand, or you can even sit in the audience.
Stand right here.
You can just yell from the audience. Hey, you.
Yeah.
Tell us about this.
About 30 seconds away.
Oh, take your time.
Be strong. And the two press people, one will stand here and one will stand here, on either side of the camera. I'll just get here for 1 second. Can you give me that tape real quick? Oh, thank you. I got it. Thank you. Great, thank you. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to give this to you as if it is the actual microphone that you're using in the podium things like that. All right, I am ready.
And you know, I'll tell you, and I hope this doesn't throw you off, but I'll tell you, you have the option to either talk to the audience in the press conference or talk directly to the camera. It's press conferences could be either way, and whatever you think is appropriate.
Great, so we're going to go in 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a very constructive meeting with the President today. We appreciate his deep concern and the deep concern he feels for the region, and you could hear from his speech today his frustration. I trust also that we, through this meeting, sense the President's sadness and the sorrow that we feel for this tragic accident that should never have occurred. BP has always met our obligations and our responsibilities, and we have made clear from the first moment of this tragedy that we will live up to all legitimate responsibilities. We have agreed today with the President on a framework that should assure the American people that we mean what we say. We will look after the people who have been affected, and we will repair the damage to this region, the environmental damage and the economic damage. We are announcing today, as you heard from the President, a $20 billion commitment to make sure that all appropriate claims are handled swiftly and handled fairly. We are also announcing an independent adjudicator, and that adjudicator will make sure that all the right people get the right money in the right time. The BP board is also announcing today their decision that we will not pay any further dividends this year. We made it clear to the President that words are not enough. We understand that we will and we should be judged on our actions. What has been clear today is that the administration and our company are fully aligned in our interest of closing the well, cleaning the beaches, and caring for all those who have been affected. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to apologize to the American people. On behalf of all the employees of BP, many of whom are living in the Gulf Coast, I do thank you for the patience you are all extending us at this difficult time. Through our actions and our commitments, We hope that over the long term, we will regain the trust that you once gave us. Thanks, and I will take a couple of questions.
Question. Thank you, sir, for your statement. We appreciate you making yourself available to address some of the concerns. You talked a little bit about a lot of the commitment that you guys are putting forth, which we all think is great, but you were a little bit vague with some of the details. So if I can just ask, can you talk a little bit about the framework that you mentioned earlier? Can you give us some details as to what's behind that framework?
I don't know all the details at this moment. It's something that's just being hashed out. As I mentioned, there will be an independent source which is going to make a lot of these determinations in terms of who is most in need, most immediately, and how best to proceed in terms of giving out funds and making the repairs that need to be made to the Gulf Coast.
Okay, and the individual making that assessment, you said, is an independent?
Yes, that will not be handled by BP or the government directly. There will be an independent, someone adjudicator and who will make these determinations, who will set a framework that is most fair and most timely.
Will that be the case for all other assessments or just for this particular project?
I can only speak to this project right now and the prompt response that we're trying to have in the Gulf region. And so that is our focus right now, and future endeavors will be governed by future needs.
Hey, Chairman, how long will it take for your company to plug the hole so to stop the oil spill?
Well, it's not clear at this point. We have teams working right now to get that done. As we spoke with the President, it's one of our top priorities beyond fixing the damage that has already been done, is making sure that no further damage is done. And as soon as it is at all possible, that will be handled.
Yeah, but do you have an estimated time, let's say 3 months, half year?
I do not personally have that timeline. The people, the engineers and the experts who are handling that are the best in their field, and they will have it done as absolutely expediently as they can.
Okay, follow-up question. Shouldn't you have considered the possibility of these oil spills so that your company already developed the technology to master this oil spill resistant?
We do always have contingency plans. There are always things that we have discussed and planned for. This is a disaster of an unprecedented nature, and so we are adapting as fast as possible to handle things. All the assets that we have in terms of surface containment and cleaning up are already in place, and we are developing new things to meet the new needs that this has presented to us.
So I think it's fair to say that the public wants to know who is responsible for this incident and how will they be held accountable. Can you speak to that?
Accountability is going to be something that is determined later, but right now engineers from both BP and from the government are currently looking at the situation, both to repair the damage that has been done to the well, to stop any further leakings, and as part of that they will determine what caused this catastrophe. There's no, I have no facts to give you right at this moment as to who you should point a finger at.
Okay, that's fair, but to say, I mean, we're sure that some things went wrong in the situation, so, you know, again, part of the public perception is who's gonna be held responsible, and eventually, what's gonna happen to them? You know, is it that the person responsible is gonna be asked to leave the company? We wanna make sure that whoever is to blame is not in a position to let this happen again.
Well, these are things that are going to have to be determined once we know more. I'm not going to start telling you that so-and-so is going to be fired or let go. There is no doubt people who are going to be held responsible, but we need to make sure that the right people are held responsible, and depending on what we discover about the failure, we'll lead our course of action in that.
And will you sort of keep the public abreast as you're going through that process?
I think at all points we're trying to be very clear and open about things. That's part of this conference today, and our meeting with the President was to have a very clear understanding of where we stand right now and where we're going to be moving forward. That's part of why we're setting from the outset this $20 billion aside, so that it is known from, again, the outset that this is not something we're taking lightly and something that we will be handling. So as we know more, we can allow other people to know more, but I can only tell you what I already have been briefed on.
Okay. Do you believe that the current safety standards of your company can prevent any further disasters?
Well, as I said before, this is an unprecedented failure of the equipment. And until we know exactly what went wrong, I can't say what our next step will be. But obviously, anytime there's a problem, we learn from it, we adapt, and our engineering teams will make the appropriate adjustments to ensure, to whatever possibility, that nothing like this ever happens again.
Okay, so can I say that there is no additional measures that your company will do right now to prevent further?
Until we have a better understanding of exactly when it went wrong, it would be premature to say what we're going to do to fix it.
Final question for me. Again, we appreciate your statement today, but I think what we're all wondering about are the 11 people who lost their lives in the process. I think it was the explosion. There were 11 people, I think, including BP employees who passed away. So the first question and a follow-up. The first is, what's going to happen with these individuals' families? What is your plan to address this? And lastly, what about the environmental impact that this incident is going to have? Have you given any thoughts to that?
Well, there's no question that this is both a human tragedy and an environmental tragedy. The BP team members who lost their lives, there is no greater immediate tragedy than the fact that their families have to suffer through that loss. But many of our family at BP consider the Gulf their home. They live and work there. And so we want to do right by them. That's part of this fund that we're setting aside. We will do everything in our power to mitigate and fix and correct any damage that has been done environmentally. And as far as the families are concerned, we will do what we have to do or what we can do to help them.
Does that include financial means?
That includes all the means that we have at our disposal. Thank you.
Good job. Yeah, I want Josh to represent my company if I spin or spill billions or millions of gallons of oil on the Gulf Coast.
Did you practice this or
No.
No, we literally all just ran into it.
Yeah, Vanessa and Frank came up with some poignant questions, and they familiarized themselves with the scenario. Yeah. All right. So comments?
I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he talks like a reporter or.
Yeah, Josh had a very soothing voice. It was a serious tone.
Yeah.
That last question that Vanessa asked, that was interesting. So it's a final question for me. So I think it's going to be a softball. But then it's like, did you consider the 11 people who died? And have you thought at all about the environmental impacts? So, all right, so one, you're asking me about 11 people that died. I got to handle that seriously. But two, haven't we been talking about the environmental impacts this whole press conference? And now this is your last question. Have I considered that? But he didn't take the bait. He answered it very politely. It was that one-way, two-way conversation we talked about. Like, she's asking this difficult question right at the end, and he's a positive vibe. Because all we see is the one-way conversation with him. Good. Priya, you had a comment?
No, I actually was going to touch on this.
Sorry.
They
Sorry,
messed up
beat you to it.
That's all right.
So that's Priya's comment as well. Yeah. Good tone of voice. Oh, one thing we did notice, or I noticed, is that Josh was looking down at his note cards. Did anyone notice how exaggerated that looked on the screen? Yeah. So, I mean, it's, we're practicing here. We can't expect you to memorize the whole thing just for a class exercise. But it's just an example of how that distracted us. And we're at points where we want to believe him because he's saying sincere things, apologies. We want to hear his true voice, so we do not want him looking down that often.
And you were,
I'm sorry.
to piggyback on that, you were actually much more grounded with the questions. That was harder than the pre-prepared speech. And we saw that because there was a slight drift. If you're shifting of your weight, if we were to play that back, you would see just a slight drift at the beginning. But when you got the questions, you stopped. So you actually came across more authoritative with the hardball questions than with your prepared statement. Mm-hmm. But it was still nonetheless very, very good. Very good use of the mic as well.
And I think this brings us back to something we talk about in class a lot. We want to communicate our genuine, true feelings, our sincerity. And with the prepared statement, especially with the looking down and up, it wasn't as sincere, it didn't ring as important and as true to us as with the questions, just like Alberto pointed out. There were some hands. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to quickly add, I would really like the portion where he tried to answer the questions because very often, I think he was asking for about, what are you going to do next? Specifically, like, how are you going to manage that? And he obviously this conference was taking place right after the incident, so he doesn't really have much detail to actually provide an answer. But he still, said something and makes people feel that it will be managed properly.
Yeah. We're doing the best we can.
Yeah.
Sure.
So in real life, does he get a teleprompter when he reads the speech?
I was trying to remember that. I had a link to the YouTube thing. I don't think he did. I think he pretty much memorized it, didn't he? He memorized it and delivered it very effectively. Probably because he had a presentation consultant saying you cannot look down at notes when you're giving this prepared statement. It's just not going to look right. Yes.
A comment for Josh. I thought he did. I was definitely trying to trap you a couple times. What was really interesting was anytime I said anything negative, like you didn't give any details about the framework or you didn't talk about this, he brought it back to the $2 billion that's being spent, which I thought was really smart. Like, I don't have details, but here's all this money they were putting behind it, so it seemed genuine. Even as a reporter, I know I'm supposed to like pound him in, but I wanted to believe him because he kept like looking at me and seeming sincere, so it came across really well.
Fantastic.
Also, like, I noticed that when she asked a question, she looked at her. He looked at her. Is that how you're supposed to do it?
Yeah, I think so.
Because
Right.
like on the camera, it seems like he's lost eye contact.
Okay, so how did that look as those of you who were looking at the screen? When he was answering Vanessa's questions and he was looking at her, were you okay with the fact that it was not directly into the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing we were talking about with Priya's interview. We were brought into her conversation with her interviewer. I feel like the same sincerity happened there, and there was a hand somewhere. Priya?
But usually, in a setting like that, we were looking at a very close setup here. But usually in a setup like that, you would actually have a bigger view of the audience, and then you can see that the person is actually focusing maybe towards the reporter on this side of the room or that side of the room. So in that context, probably he did a great job. But here we were focusing on just him.
Yeah, and I think it would have been weird if he had looked right into the camera, because obviously he's talking, there's someone here with a concern, I'm answering their concern. I'm not making a political statement right into the camera. Good, yes, yeah.
I think we answered the question very tactfully and never didn't overpromise. And I don't know if that's something business communication going to teach, but how to use the language in a perfect, a good way, a better way.
Yeah,
I actually agree with that. You did not overcommit to anything, especially in front of the press, that you were not authorized to commit to.
But
Is it the law
still,
coming
I
into
think
play?
that's probably law school.
I think he didn't have the lecture we talked about earlier to prepare for this, but he did it naturally. He developed his key messages into sound bites and said, we are working to do our best. He mentioned the experts are working on that several times. So the experts are working on that. BP employees live and work in the area, and we are doing our absolute best. So those were key messages boiled down to sound bites, and he did not overcommit.
One thing to say. I know, when we were talking about this emotional thing, people losing lives, environmental, would you like to see some vocal, right?
Yes, but I think he registered that. I think he did a great job with that last question where he said, there is no doubt this is humanitarian and environmental disaster. And I felt like there were some pauses, there was some slow pace to his language. And to Priya's point, we do not want the same speed. We don't want some sort of analytical answer when we get an emotional question. And I think he did. I think he did well. All right, great. I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Alberto, for coming. Look forward to seeing you all next week.
We just have a question about the assignment. We know that there's an assignment due for next week, but we're not sure what that is and how we should